How do you take one of the most successful gacha games ever made and then do this? A 1.4 rating currently on the App Store for Infinity Nikki, made by Infold. If you know anything about Infold, they're also the makers of Love and Deep Space, which is considered a pretty insanely stingy game, but really popular among fans. Mostly female fans, of course, as is Infinity Nikki, because this company generally focuses more on female-centric games, which is pretty smart because if you think about it, half the entire planet are women. So it makes sense to make some games targeting them since most of these games are targeting men. But what happened with this game? Well, this is a story completely about greed. Pure and simple, nothing really more complex than that. Just unbelievable greed, and maybe one of the worst cases I've ever seen for any modern gacha game, especially a high budget one. So, what happened? Well, first I watched a video here by Sorosness, and she goes over it absolutely wonderfully, so I'm going to put this in the comments as well. But essentially, the pull system is every 20 pulls, you pity a piece of one of the outfits. So let's say I'm trying to go for Fairy Tale Swan over here. You go for the gloves, and that might be up to 20 pulls pity, maybe the certain part of the dress, maybe a belt, maybe the socks, etc. Right? So you individually get every single piece. When you have all the pieces of that outfit, you can now use its abilities. But also people just like to really collect. Well, the company decided, hey, I have a genius idea. Let's increase the pity of it by adding an extra piece that you have to pull for. So now, instead of 200 pulls, which is the maximum, it's 220 pulls. I have never heard of a gacha game increasing the pity. That's just absolutely unheard of, because that would torpedo almost any game instantly. But they thought they could get away with it because, well, they have a stranglehold on the market. If you quit the game, where else are you gonna go? Understandably, the fans were a little bit upset. Also, apparently, this extra piece was some socks you could barely even see. So it was very obviously done purely out of greed and nothing else whatsoever. Not to mention, this game also has something that's been kind of buzzing around the gacha community a lot. It has essentially a mileage system built in to every single banner. Yeah. People have been insanely pissed about a game like Honkai Star Rail having essentially a payment event, or even Wuthering Waves having its little black market thing. People are like, oh, it's kind of like a payment event. Every damn banner in this game has a payment event. This game is built upon these kind of principles where, oh, as you pull, you get extra pieces of a different colored version of that outfit you're trying to get. So let's pretend you just happen to get the outfit and it's a green color, right? And maybe you got lucky with your pulls, so you didn't have to pity each individual piece because it's 20 pulls for a pity. Maybe you got all of them in 10 pulls each, so you got the whole outfit half off. Well, if you want, let's say, the red version of the outfit, you would have to go through the mileage and maybe pull extra just to get that, and the very final piece would be at 230 pulls. I found that absolutely ridiculous that would even be inbuilt into your game just with every banner all the time. That's completely absurd, but I find it very funny because it's such a big topic in other gacha games. Meanwhile, Infinity Nikki's just been doing this under the table the entire time. But essentially, players were unbelievably pissed. This, along with many other things, huge performance issues were happening to the game, like way worse than even Wuthering Waves launch was happening. They decided to retcon the entire story for some reason. Just so many weird choices that the company was making, and then on top of it, all of this greed. Well, understandably, the players were not very happy. If you look at a place like Steam, you'll see that now it's mixed. Also, for some reason, this game is similar to Expedition 33 and Elden Ring, two of the best games ever made. I don't really understand how that's possible, but hey, maybe this game's pretty good. Maybe I should start playing. But understandably, the players are incredibly incensed now, and they should be. Players should not just sit around and get abused by these companies. It's unbelievable. But, you see, here's the funny part. They did get pissed, and they started to start the girlcott, right? Not a boycott. Well, first of all, because most of the players are probably girls, but also because boycott actually got banned. Like, you can't say that word. You could get in trouble for saying that word, so they started the girlcott, and they're saying, like, please continue the girlcott. We got to keep not giving them money. We need to protest this. They even had like articles written about them, like, look, boycott, ongoing drama, and 1.5, launch the girlcott. So the players really were trying to band together to protest this, because it's just unbelievable how you could do something like that. And eventually the company did put out a statement. They put this out, a really long apology letter. But the thing is, this letter, I'm just gonna be real, it sucks. It is absolute garbage. Like, they do say stuff like, we fell short of expectations and all this kind of stuff. But here's the real issue. They talk about the pieces of the 5-star outfits, and this was the crux of the entire problem, is they basically just raised the pity because they added an extra piece to an outfit that you need. In their apology, they say, we will not go over this amount in the future. What? What kind of apology is that? They're not saying we will never go to this pity ever again, so 220 pulls, right? We will never do this again. They say we'll never go over 220 pulls for 5-star outfits. What kind of apology is that? You completely missed the entire point of why people were upset. You completely missed it. Well, obviously they're just purposely trying to subvert it, but also the wording is kind of funny, because what if they make a 6-star outfit? Does that mean it could have like 20 pieces? Because 5-star outfit isn't allowed to, but I'm not really sure. It says, moving forward, we will guarantee the number of pieces in 5-star outfits will not exceed 11, and major changes will be communicated in advance through official channels. I don't know. That wording seems a little open to interpretation in the possible future, right? There were a lot of other problems people were upset over, of course, such as performance and like the story and all those things, but I have never heard of a gacha game increasing the pity and requiring you to pull more. Could you imagine if you were playing a game like Wuthering Waves, and then they went, okay guys, we're gonna add a secondary weapon and you need to pull that too? People would lose their mind. They would go absolutely insane. This goes for any game, any of the big gachas, even smaller gachas. I have seen some of the worst gachas imaginable not do this, increasing the pity, because they know the players are going to lose their minds. So the fact that the company actually thought they could get away with this is pretty unbelievable, and in essence they kind of have. Now it really comes down to, does the girlcott actually work? Are the players actually going to just completely protest so hard that the company has to give in, give free stuff out, really refund things? Because they did actually give some pulls out as an apology as well. But we've seen this before. There was an example right here where I believe Nexon in MapleStory had a mystery box, and this mystery box could contain all sorts of cool things. What they didn't say, and this is against the law by the way, is that you could only get some of the really rare things after like 100 pulls. So you had to do 100 boxes or whatever opening, and then after the 100th you could start to get the really rare stuff. That's very clearly against the law because they didn't say that. So they got fined a little slap on the wrist, like $15 million or something. Well, that box had made over like $200 million. So why would they just not do it again? It's unbelievable, right? And this is the same situation here. If you can abuse the fans and you just go, oh, I'm sorry, and give out a really small apology, why would they just not do it again? You really can't trust a company like that. And realistically, we all know, basically every gacha game, you can't fully trust them, right? The companies or the game. But there still is some level of understanding and trust between companies often. But if you break it to this degree, that's pretty insane. And it seems like the players really have been rising up, but is it actually going to be enough? Because the issue here, the real problem, is there's no competition. The market is so overly saturated when it comes to games with like hot women and games more aimed at men. When it comes to something like Infinity Nikki, an open, cozy world game, how many games are really competing with that are a gacha or live service model? Like sure, there's good games like Animal Crossing and stuff that you can play, but how many games are in the gacha market? None. Same with Love and Deep Space. There's so little competition that game also, I've heard, has very greedy practices in general, and that's why it's able to make such an unbelievable amount of money, because people love games like Infinity Nikki or Love and Deep Space, but what are you gonna do? Quit the game? Now there's no game. You have no other game to try or go back to. There's no competition. I would say that probably somewhat in the near future, I think there's probably some games in the pipeline right now being built for women, because it's a huge market. Duh, it's half the entire planet. I don't know why game developers haven't understood this yet. Turns out around 50% of the whole human population is women. Maybe you should make more games targeting them too. It kind of just logically makes sense. And hey, this company Infold, they found the secret sauce, which is, maybe we should make some games that cater to them. And lo and behold, it worked. Seems like making decent budget games was actually a good idea for them. But without any competition, they can just keep being greedy and doing this to the players. And even if the players get what they want and the company's a little bit less greedy, I still think they're going to be treated so much worse than a lot of these other games do, because there needs to be more games competing with them. So hopefully in the near future, we're going to see some more games come out. Hopefully the girlcott works, and hopefully the company somehow has to learn a lesson. I'm not really sure if the players are going to be able to force that on them, or maybe in the future when competition comes around. But I think when it really comes down to it, we should always be on the side of the players. It doesn't matter if you play the game, you should still support those players, because realistically, when it comes to gacha games, we're all kind of in the same boat. And the better that any other games start treating the players, the more other players can go, hey, they get that and we get this, why don't we get that? And everyone starts to question that, and the more that happens, the better everyone can be treated. And companies don't want that to happen, but realistically, it's a win-win for everybody. So I really hope we start to see this in the near future. Anyways, I just really wanted to go over this topic because I thought it was absolutely insane that this was even happening. Thanks a bunch for watching this video, and I hope to see you next time.